I showed my son a photo album I made of his childhood, thinking he'd share it with his kids. His wife rolled her eyes and said, "We're trying to move forward, not dwell in the past." My son put it in a drawer without looking. I took it back that night. The next time they asked for family memories for a school project, I sent a package that I had always been close with Daniel. He was my only child. We did everything together when he was little. Science fairs, hikes, even just sitting on the porch eating popsicles in the summer. After his dad died when Daniel was 11, it was just the two of us. I made sure he never felt alone. I worked overtime, skipped vacations, took night shifts to pay for his college. He knew that. At least I thought he did. Then Rachel came into the picture. They met in grad school. I didn't mind her at first, smart, a little cold, but maybe that was nerves. She came from money, and you could tell. She always talked like she was managing someone. And she never asked questions about our family, never really saw me. But Daniel loved her, and that was enough for me. At first. After they got married, things changed fast. They moved to Portland. They said it was temporary, just for her job. But a year passed. Then two. Then Abby was born. I only saw her once in person when she was a baby. The rest? Just blurry photos and the occasional Zoom call where Rachel would hover off-screen, tapping her watch if I talked too long. So I poured myself into that album. It wasn't just photos. It was a memory map. Every birthday. Every scrape. Notes I'd written on the back of school photos. Drawings he made in kindergarten. A photo of his dad holding him at the hospital. I put my whole heart into that book. I thought giving it to him would bring something back. Remind him who we were before the distance, before her. I waited until the last night of their Thanksgiving trip. They were packing up leftovers, the kids were playing with the dog, and I brought it out. "I made this for you," I said. "Thought maybe you'd want to share it with the kids. Family stuff." Daniel took it with a quick smile. Didn't open it. Just said, "Thanks, Mom." "Rachel?" She gave this fake laugh and said, "We're trying to move forward, not dwell in the past." Just like that. No kindness in it. No warmth. Daniel didn't say anything. Just put the album in a drawer like it was some coupon flyer. I went to bed with my heart in my throat. That night, I waited until they were asleep. Walked into the living room, opened the drawer. There it was. Untouched. Not a fingerprint on the cover. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I slipped it into my suitcase. They never mentioned it again. Not a text, not a call. Nothing. Then in April, Daniel called asking for family memories for Abby's school project. I told him sure. I'd be happy to help. And I was. But not in the way they expected. I spent 2 days going through boxes in the attic. But this time I didn't filter. I didn't protect. I found letters. Letters Daniel's father had written to me when I was pregnant. Emotional, raw stuff. I found a poem Daniel wrote in 4th grade about how he missed his dad and how I made him feel safe. But I also found other things. A letter Daniel had sent me from college after his first big breakup, saying he felt like he was losing himself trying to make someone else happy. Photos of Rachel from the wedding, she didn't know I had the ones from the night before, where she yelled at the caterer for putting cream cheese on her side of the buffet table. You could see Daniel standing to the side, uncomfortable. And a journal I kept for years, short entries, nothing dramatic. But they told the truth. Dates and details of every time Rachel ignored or insulted me. Every time Daniel didn't stand up for me. Even a note from when they skipped our Christmas plans 3 years ago because Rachel couldn't handle the travel. Turned out they went to Aspen with her family instead. So I scanned it all. I put it in a binder. I labeled it Family Memory Archive for Abby and Eli. At the very end, I put a letter. Just a short one. I told them I loved them. That they came from people who fought hard to love and protect one another. That truth matters even when it's not easy. Then I mailed the package. Priority. Signed delivery. 3 days later, I got a call. Not from Daniel. From Rachel. She was livid. You had no right sending that to the kids. That was completely inappropriate. I didn't raise my voice. Did you even open the album I gave Daniel? Silence. Then, that's not the point. It's exactly the point, I said. She hung up. An hour later, Daniel called. Daniel sounded tired when he called. Not angry, not upset, just worn out. Mom, what the hell was that? I sat down at the kitchen table. I knew this conversation would come. You asked for family memories. I sent them. He let out a breath. But why like that? The journal? That letter from Dad? You didn't think that was too much? Too much? I said. You didn't even open the album I made for you. You put it in a drawer like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. He was quiet. I kept going. You said Abby needed to understand her family. Well, that was her family. The good and the bad. I didn't want the kids to see some of that stuff, he said, voice low. Rachel's furious. She says you're trying to turn the kids against her. I laughed, just once, sharp. I'm not the one who's been erasing me for the past 8 years. I'm not erasing you. You haven't visited since Abby was 2. You call maybe once every few months. I send gifts, I write letters, and they go unanswered. That album was the last thing I had left to give you, Daniel. His voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't even look at it, I said. You didn't even look. He was crying now. I could hear it in the pauses, in the soft breath he let out before speaking again. I didn't know how to stand up to her, he said. She hates anything that reminds me of before we met. Says it makes me emotionally unavailable. I guess I gave in. You gave me up. I heard him swallow hard. I want to fix this, he said. I'll come visit. Just me and the kids. You think she'll let you? I don't care anymore. There it was. Something broke open in that moment. Not all the way. But something real. Something raw. 2 weeks later, Daniel showed up at my door. Just him, Abby, and Eli. No Rachel. They stayed 3 days. We looked through the album together. Abby asked a million questions. Eli wanted to know more about the treehouse Daniel and I built when he was 10. I showed them the exact spot in the backyard where it used to be. On the second night, Daniel pulled me aside after the kids went to bed. She found out I booked the tickets without telling her. Screamed at me for an hour. Said if I walked out that door, she might not be there when I came back. I stared at him. And? He looked down. I told her maybe that was for the best. I didn't say anything. I just put a hand on his shoulder. That night, we sat on the back porch like we used to. Drinking coffee, watching the stars. He asked me if I still had the journal. I nodded. I want to read it, he said. I handed it to him. He didn't say much after reading it. Just nodded slowly and kept flipping pages. The next morning, he asked if he could take the journal back with him. It's yours now, I said. He hugged me tight. The first real hug I'd had from him in years. They left the next day. On the ride to the airport, Abby said, Dad, when can we come back to Grandma's? He looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, soon. But that's not where the story ends. 2 weeks later, Rachel called again. This time, she wasn't yelling. She was calm. I should have known that meant something worse. I want you to know I'm not the villain you think I am, she said. I never said you were a villain, I answered. But you've done a lot to push me out. She sighed. Daniel moved into a hotel. Took the kids with him. He says he needs space. I know. I told him if he walks away from this marriage, I'll fight for full custody. I sat up straighter. You'd take their father away over this? I'd take them away from someone who puts this kind of influence in their lives, she snapped. They're kids. They don't need all this emotional baggage. I stayed quiet. Then I said, if this is how you handle conflict, maybe they're better off without you. She hung up. That night, Daniel called again. She's threatening to take the kids. Do you have a lawyer? I asked. Yeah. Anne. Mom, I need you. I need your help. I told him yes. Of course I would help. I wasn't about to sit back and let her rewrite everything, not just the past, but now the future too. Daniel moved into a short-term rental outside of Beaverton. He didn't tell Rachel where. He had joint custody for now, but the real battle was coming. He was preparing for court. I flew out a week later. I packed the photo album. The journal. Printouts of every letter I'd written, every birthday card I'd mailed and never got a response to. Even shipping receipts from the toys I sent the kids over the years. I wasn't showing up empty-handed. His lawyer told us it was going to get ugly. Rachel had already filed for emergency sole custody, citing emotional manipulation from both Daniel and me. She claimed we were filling the kids' heads with destructive stories and trauma narratives. Basically, she was calling family memories abuse. The lawyer asked if I'd be willing to testify. I didn't hesitate. Court was worse than I expected. Rachel showed up looking like she was auditioning for a sympathy commercial. Tearful. Dignified. She said Daniel was unstable. Said I was obsessed with the past and had a toxic emotional hold on her husband. Then her lawyer pulled out a printout of the journal. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Do you deny writing this? No, I said. It's my handwriting. They're my words. And do you think it's appropriate to send something like this to children? I looked at the judge. I think what's inappropriate is pretending none of it happened. I'm not ashamed of what I wrote. It's the truth. And the children weren't the first to see it. Their father was. Daniel was next. He was calm, direct. Said Rachel had been emotionally controlling for years. That she made him cut contact with people, including me. That she discouraged any conversation about his father, about his childhood, about anything that happened before her. He told the court she'd once thrown out a box of old photos she found in his office closet. Called it mental clutter. Then something happened we didn't expect. The court requested a child therapist to speak with Abby and Eli privately. Neutral setting. No lawyers, no parents. Just a counselor and 2 kids. What came out of that changed everything. The therapist's report said the kids were emotionally closer to Daniel, and that Rachel shut down any talk about family or memories. Abby had cried during the session, saying she was scared to tell her mom she missed grandma because it makes her mad. Eli told the therapist he felt like he had 2 dads, one when Rachel was around and one when she wasn't. That hit the judge hard. Rachel's lawyer pushed back. Called the report subjective. But it didn't matter. The judge granted Daniel primary custody and ruled that any long-term custody arrangement would be reviewed after family therapy. Rachel stormed out of the courtroom. The next day, Daniel asked me to stay a little longer. Said he wasn't ready to face it all without someone who knew who he really was. So I stayed. And a week later, something arrived in the mail. A thick envelope addressed to me. No return address. Inside was the photo album. The same one I made. I flipped through it. And there it was, a note tucked between 2 pages. Written in Rachel's handwriting. You got what you wanted. Enjoy it while it lasts. I showed it to Daniel. He read it and didn't say anything at first. Then he walked to the kitchen, took out a lighter, and burned the note over the sink. He watched the ashes fall, then looked at me and said, "I'm done apologizing." Months passed. The kids started seeing a counselor. Slowly, Rachel's visits became more about control than care. She missed 2 appointments. Showed up late. Complained the whole time. Eventually, the court reduced her visitation. Daniel rebuilt himself. Went back to teaching part-time. Took the kids hiking. We started doing Sunday dinners over video calls when I was back home. And every night, before bed, he read a story to the kids. Sometimes, it was from the journal. Sometimes, just a memory. One night, Abby asked him, "Dad, do you think Grandma would teach me how to make that lasagna you liked?" He smiled. "Yeah. She'd love that." That was the real revenge. Not the courtroom. Not the package. It was Daniel remembering who he was. It was the kids knowing where they came from. It was truth winning out over silence. Rachel tried to erase me from their lives. But in the end, it was her that disappeared from the story. And we never let her write it again.